Crossroads, Hagerstown, Story 3, Country Club Silence. In Hagerstown, there were two kinds of quiet. There was the quiet of the streets after midnight, the kind that carried sirens in the distance, like a lullaby nobody asked for. And there was the quiet of Beaver Creek Country Club, the kind that came from money, from gates, from manicured grass, that absorbed sound like it was trained to. Elaine Whitaker loved that quiet. It made everything feel under control. Tonight, she needed control more than ever. The ballroom at Beaver Creek glowed with warm light and polite laughter. Crystal glasses clinked, linen napkins lay folded like origami. A jazz trio played softly in the corner, the music just loud enough to feel elegant, but not loud enough to interrupt conversation. On the wall behind the podium, a banner read, "Hagerstown Hope Gala, Uniting Against the Opioid Crisis." Elaine stood near the front, a smile held carefully in place like makeup. She wore a navy blue dress and pearls. Her hair was done perfectly. Her lipstick was the kind of red that said authority without saying thirst. She looked the way a city councilwoman was supposed to look. Confident, compassionate, uncomplicated. The complicated part sat in the far corner of the room, sipping sparkling water and pretending he wasn't shaking. Connor Whitaker, 20 years old, home from college for the summer, sat with his shoulders tight and his face too calm. If you didn't know him, you'd think he was bored. Elaine knew her son's tells, the way he kept rubbing his thumb against the rim of the glass, the way his eyes blinked a half-second too slow, the way his smile didn't reach anywhere real. Elaine watched him for a moment, and a cold thread of fear slid through her stomach. Then someone touched her elbow. "Elaine," a woman whispered brightly, "you look stunning." Elaine turned instantly into the version of herself that lived for rooms like this. "Thank you," she said warmly. "You look lovely too." More compliments came, more handshakes, more donor smiles. Elaine moved through it all like she was born for it, because in a way she had been. Not born into money? No. She'd married into it, earned her seat at these tables with charm, discipline, and the kind of hunger that didn't look like hunger if you dressed it well enough. She had built her career on being the person who could speak about problems without ever smelling like them. She had toured shelters, visited clinics, taken photos holding hands with grieving mothers, and then she came back to Beaver Creek and slept behind gates. Elaine approached the podium, her heels tapping softly on polished floor. The room dimmed slightly as the spotlight found her. The applause began, polite but enthusiastic. Wealth liked to applaud itself for caring. Elaine lifted her hands. "Good evening," she said, voice smooth. "Thank you all for being here." She scanned the crowd with practiced warmth. Doctors, business owners, real estate investors, the sheriff's wife, the publisher of the local paper, the pastor who did prayers at civic events, Hagerstown's clean hands. "We are gathered tonight," Elaine continued, "because we refuse to accept that addiction is just part of our story. We refuse to accept that our children should grow up surrounded by loss." Heads nodded, smiles tightened, eyes glistened in public. Elaine let the moment breathe. "This crisis," she said, "doesn't discriminate. It affects all of us." A line she'd practiced, a line she believed, mostly. She glanced briefly toward Connor's corner. Connor looked away. Elaine's throat tightened, but she kept speaking. "We are raising funds tonight," she said, "for treatment programs, prevention education, and community resources. We are going to make Hagerstown safer, together." Applause again. Elaine smiled, and somewhere in the back of her mind, a different sound played. Not applause, a bathroom door locking, a sniff, a quiet curse, a mother waking up at 3 a.m. and finding her son's room empty. Elaine finished the speech and stepped down. She moved immediately into the social current of the room, letting donors praise her, letting compliments wash over the dread she carried. Then she saw her husband, Garrett Whitaker, approaching. Garrett looked like Beaver Creek itself, clean, composed, confident. The kind of man who believed order was natural because it was his. "You nailed it," Garrett said softly, leaning in. "Perfect message." Elaine forced a smile. "Thank you," she said. Garrett's eyes flicked across the room. "Where's Connor?" he asked. Elaine's smile stayed in place. Over there, she said, nodding toward the corner. Garrett followed her gaze. Connor wasn't in the corner anymore. Elaine's stomach dropped. She scanned the room. No Connor. She forced herself not to panic in front of donors. "Excuse me," she said to Garrett. "I need to check something." Garrett frowned. "What?" Elaine didn't answer. She moved fast, weaving through tables with a smile she didn't feel. She found the women's restroom first, peeked in discreetly. No Connor. Then she found the hallway that led to the private lounge, where the men smoked cigars and talked politics like it was sport. She stepped into the hallway, and then she heard it, a sound that didn't belong here, a muffled sob. Elaine froze. Her eyes tracked toward a door slightly ajar, a side room used for coat storage and catering supplies. Elaine's heart pounded. She moved closer, slow, like she was approaching a wild animal. She pushed the door open. Inside, Connor sat on a folding chair with his head in his hands. His shoulders shook. Elaine stepped in and closed the door behind her. "Connor," she whispered. Connor looked up. His eyes were wet and unfocused. "Mom," he said. His voice sounded like he was underwater. Elaine crossed the room and knelt in front of him, her pearls cool against her throat. "What's wrong?" she asked, though she already knew. Connor laughed, a small broken sound. "You really don't know?" he asked. Elaine swallowed. Did you take something?" she asked, keeping her voice low. Connor's eyes narrowed, offended. "What do you think?" he snapped. Then his face crumpled again. "I can't stop, Mom." Elaine's breath caught. She reached for his hands. Connor pulled away like her touch burned. "I'm trying," Connor whispered, voice shaking. "I'm trying so hard, but every time I feel normal, it fades, and I feel like I'm dying inside my own skin." Elaine's eyes burned. "What did you take?" she asked. Connor looked down, ashamed. "Just pills," he whispered. Elaine's stomach twisted. "Where are you getting them?" she asked. Connor hesitated. Elaine's voice sharpened. "Connor," she said. "Where?" Connor's jaw tightened. "I don't know," he said. "Some guy, a friend's friend." Elaine felt anger flare. "You don't know?" she hissed. "Connor, are you hearing yourself?" Connor looked up with tears. "You don't get it," he said. "You don't know what it feels like. You're always—" He gestured vaguely. "Always perfect, always speeches, always smiles. I'm not like that." Elaine's throat tightened. "You think I'm perfect?" she whispered. Connor stared at her. Elaine swallowed hard. "I'm terrified," she said, voice breaking slightly. "All the time. I'm terrified for you." Connor's eyes softened for a second. Then his face twisted again. "I need it," he whispered. "I just need it to get through." Elaine's mind raced. Treatment, rehab, calling someone, calling a doctor. But calling a doctor meant paper trails. Paper trails meant whispers. Whispers meant headlines. And headlines meant votes. Elaine felt her chest tighten. She hated herself for the thought. But the thought existed. Connor's breathing became shallow. Elaine grabbed his shoulders. "Listen to me," she said firmly. "You're going to get help. Do you understand me? You're going to get help." Connor stared at her, exhausted. "What help?" he asked bitterly. "Your help? Your keep it quiet help?" Elaine flinched. She looked at her son, really looked at him, and she saw the truth she had been avoiding. This wasn't a phase. This wasn't rebellion. This was sickness. And sickness didn't care about reputations. Elaine stood up slowly. "Stay here," she said. Connor laughed weakly. "Where am I going to go? Back to the podium?" Elaine ignored him. She opened the door and stepped back into the hallway. Her smile returned automatically. Her posture straightened. She walked like she belonged. Because she did. She moved fast through the crowd until she found Garrett. Garrett was talking to a donor, laughing. Elaine stepped in, lightly touching his arm. "Garrett," she said, voice pleasant, "I need you. Now." Garrett's smile faltered. He excused himself and followed her into the hallway. "What is it?" he asked, annoyed. Elaine stopped walking and faced him. "It's Connor," she said quietly. "He's not okay." Garrett's brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" Elaine's voice lowered further. "He's using," she said. Garrett stared like she'd spoken another language. "What?" he snapped. Elaine's eyes burned. "Pills." Garrett's face flushed. "Not here," Garrett hissed. "Not tonight." Elaine's jaw tightened. Garrett stepped closer, voice harsh. "Do you understand what this will do?" he demanded. "If people find out—" Elaine cut him off. "He could die," she whispered. Garrett froze. Elaine's voice trembled but held. "I don't care what it does to the gala," she said. "I don't care what it does to the campaign. I don't care what it does to your friends or your donors or your board seat." Garrett's eyes flashed. "You're being dramatic," he snapped. Elaine stared at him. "No," she said. "I'm being a mother." Garrett's jaw tightened. He looked away. Then he exhaled, sharp. "Fine," he said. "Get him in the car. We'll handle it." Elaine nodded, but she knew what Garrett meant by handle. Handle meant protect. Handle meant bury. Handle meant silence. Elaine turned and walked back toward the side room. But as she moved, she saw something else. At the edge of the ballroom near the bar, a young woman stood laughing with her friends. Beautiful, dressed in a black dress that clung to wealth. Her eyes were glassy in a familiar way. Elaine recognized her. Sadie Mason, 22, daughter of a prominent developer. Elaine had seen Sadie at events like this before. Always bright, always social, always a little too bright. Elaine felt her stomach tighten again. She kept walking. She reached the side room, opened the door. Connor was still there, staring at the floor. Elaine crouched beside him. "Come on," she said softly. "We're leaving." Connor blinked slowly. "I can't," he whispered. Elaine grabbed his arm. "You can," she said, voice firm. Connor stood shakily. Elaine wrapped his arm around her shoulder and guided him out into the hallway. As they moved toward the exit, donors smiled at Elaine. They thought she was just leaving early. They didn't see the tremble in Connor's legs. They didn't see the panic in Elaine's eyes. They didn't want to see. Because Beaver Creek didn't pay for tickets to reality. Outside, the night air hit them like cold water. The parking lot was quiet, filled with luxury cars under soft lights. Garrett pulled the car around. Elaine guided Connor into the back seat. Connor leaned his head against the window, breathing slow. Elaine slid into the passenger seat. Garrett started the engine. He didn't speak at first. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Finally, he said, low and furious, "How long has this been going on?" Elaine stared forward. "I don't know," she admitted. Garrett cursed under his breath. "You didn't know," he said, voice dripping accusation. Elaine's throat tightened. "I didn't want to know," she whispered. Garrett looked at her sharply. Elaine didn't look back. The car drove out of Beaver Creek. They passed the gate. The quiet changed. The town's other quiet seeped in. Sirens in the distance. Streetlights flickering. Hagerstown. Connor shifted in the back seat, groaning. Elaine turned around. "Connor," she whispered, "talk to me." Connor's eyes were half closed. "I hate myself," he whispered. Elaine's eyes burned again. "Don't," she pleaded. Connor's lips trembled. "I can't stop," he whispered. "It's everywhere, Mom. It's—" He swallowed hard. "It's not just me. It's everybody. You just don't see it at the club." Garrett snapped, "Stop talking." Connor laughed bitterly. "See?" Connor said weakly. "That's what he does. That's what you both do. You just shut it down. Make it disappear." Elaine flinched, because Connor was right. Silence was the Whitaker family's favorite tool. Silence kept them clean. Silence kept them powerful. Silence kept them safe, until it didn't. The car drove in tense quiet. Elaine watched the street signs go by. Dual highway, downtown, then the hospital exit. Garrett slowed. Elaine turned to him. "We're going to the hospital?" she asked. Garrett's jaw tightened. "No," he said. "We're going home." Elaine stared at him. Garrett, she started. Garrett's voice cut like a knife. You want this on record? He hissed. You want police reports, doctors, nurses? You want someone to see Connor Whitaker in an ER bed? You want tomorrow's gossip? Elaine's heart pounded. Connor moaned in the back seat, barely conscious. Elaine's voice shook. He needs help, she whispered. Garrett's eyes flashed. He needs discipline, Garrett snapped. We'll call Dr. Larkin. He'll prescribe something. Keep it quiet, handle it, like everything else. Elaine stared at him, and something inside her, something old and tired, snapped. No, she said. Garrett froze. What? Elaine's voice steadied. No, she repeated. We are not handling this like a stain on our carpet. Garrett's jaw tightened. You're out of your mind, he hissed. Elaine turned toward Connor, then back to Garrett. Turn in, she said firmly. To the hospital. Garrett stared at her like she'd slapped him. Elaine's eyes held. Turn in, she said again, voice colder, or I will call an ambulance right now and tell them exactly what's happening. Garrett's face flushed with rage. You would destroy us, he said. Elaine's voice lowered. He will die, she said. And if that happens, I don't care what gets destroyed. Garrett held her gaze. For a moment, Elaine thought he might refuse. Then Garrett swore and turned the wheel hard. The car entered the hospital parking lot. Connor groaned again. Elaine exhaled, shaky. Garrett parked aggressively. Elaine got out, opened Connor's door, and helped him out. Connor stumbled. Elaine held him tightly. They walked toward the sliding doors. Bright light spilled out like judgment. Inside, the waiting room was filled with people who didn't have gates to keep pain out. A woman with a swollen eye, a man holding his arm, a teenager crying quietly. Elaine stepped in and felt the air change. This wasn't Beaver Creek. This was real. Connor leaned heavily against her, shaking. Elaine approached the desk. The nurse looked up. Can I help you? The nurse asked. Elaine swallowed. She felt the weight of what she was about to do. She thought about donors and headlines. She thought about politics. Then she thought about Connor's blue-gray face, about him whispering, I hate myself. Elaine took a breath. Yes, she said clearly. My son is struggling with opioid use. He needs help. The nurse's expression shifted. Not judgmental, not impressed, just professional. Okay, she said. Let's get him triaged. Elaine nodded. Connor looked at her with watery eyes. Mom, he whispered weakly. Elaine squeezed his hand. I'm here, she said. Garrett stood behind them, rigid, furious, afraid. Elaine didn't look back. She didn't need to. She knew the marriage would feel this. She knew the campaign would feel this. She knew Beaver Creek would whisper, but she also knew something else now. Silence wasn't safety. Silence was surrender. And for the first time in a long time, Elaine Whitaker chose to speak anyway. Hours later, Elaine sat in a hard plastic chair beside Connor's hospital bed. Connor slept, sedated, breathing more evenly. The doctor had spoken to her calmly, explaining options, explaining treatment plans. Elaine listened like her life depended on it, because Connor's did. Garrett had left earlier, saying he needed to make calls. Elaine knew what calls meant. Damage controls and containment, silence. Elaine sat alone in the hum of hospital machines, staring at her son. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Elaine's breath caught. She opened it. You can't speech your way out of this. Elaine's skin went cold. Another message came through. We know who your boy buys from. Elaine stared at the screen, heart hammering. The crisis didn't discriminate. It didn't respect gates. It didn't care about pearls or campaigns. It was in her house now, in her bloodline, in her son's veins. Elaine looked at Connor's sleeping face. She reached out and brushed his hair back gently. Then she whispered, so softly only the machines heard her. No more silence, she said. Outside the hospital window, Hagerstown sat under the dark sky, the same town that held overdose corners and country club galas, shelters and gated communities, jail cells and college dreams. One town, two kinds of quiet. Elaine used to live comfortably inside one of them. Now she understood she was inside both, and there was no gate tall enough to keep the truth out forever. She turned her phone over and stared at the ceiling. Her mind raced with new decisions, not political ones, not strategic ones, human ones. If the town had reached into her life, then maybe she had to reach into the town's real life too, not just the version she spoke about on podiums. Maybe she had to stop pretending she was above it. Maybe she had to stop hiding. Elaine Whitaker sat in the hospital chair, exhausted and awake, listening to her son breathe. And she understood something that felt like the beginning of a different kind of campaign. Not for votes, for survival, for truth, for her son, for the town, for herself. This concludes Story 3. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe.